Welcome, everyone. Um, so glad that you're here. My name is Heather Leavitt Martinez. I want to welcome you to Appreciative Inquiry plus Visuals equals Meeting Design Part 2. I am a certified Appreciative Inquiry Facilitator and virtual practitioner, and I'd love to introduce you to my wonderful tech host sidekick, Mary. Mary, if you could give a wave. And all of you are welcome to either choose view. If you go to the upper right hand corner and choose view, I will spotlight myself for the recording at times. This session is being recorded. You can go to the upper right hand corner and go to view and either choose gallery to see everyone or speaker view to see me. Now I will be sharing my screen today. We're going to be going and using third-party collaboration tools and going into breakouts. So if you have any accommodations that you need, please let me know. The live transcript has been turned on. You are certainly welcome to hide that or keep it going, whatever works great for you. It's totally up to you. And all right, so any questions before we get started? Because we've got a lot to cover today, and I'm really excited to be able to do that. Couple of housekeeping things. Actually, I'm going to cover housekeeping in just a second. Just want to acknowledge that I am honored to live and work on the ancestral lands of the Ute Pueblo Anasazi elders, past, present, and future. And if you'd like to know what native lands that you reside on, I'm going to ask Mary to put that in the chat. Now, I am going to cover some housekeeping things today, but I want to just dive right in and get to know you a little bit. And I'm curious where you are dialing in from. So if you attended one of the free sessions, mini sessions, then you may be familiar with this. We are actually going to be using the annotation tool. So if you go to the top of your screen, it might say you are seeing Heather's screen and go to view options. You should be able to click that and go down to annotate. A little window will come up and allow you to choose the stamp tool. And if you want to grab a stamp, it could be anything, a heart, a star, and just stamp where you're dialing in from. That helps us know and have a visual view of who in the world is dialing in. And if you're having trouble finding the annotation tool, I'm happy to walk through that again, or you can simply type it in the chat and we can put a stamp in there to represent you. All right. Everybody get a chance to stamp where they're dialing in from? All right, we've got Rochester, New York. We've got California. I'll go ahead and pop those in there. So people are getting a little stamp happy. That's okay. Great. Amherst, Massachusetts. Wonderful. Anyone else have trouble with the annotation tool or just have a question about this? Middletown, Delaware. Wonderful. Lots of East and West Coasters. Okay. I like to do this, especially with my lettering classes or my tech hosting classes. We have people from all over the world. So this gives me an idea of who we're working with. And it looks like it's all in the United States, Northville, Michigan, Northern Virginia. Great. I'm going to go ahead and take a picture and count down first. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to go ahead and clear that. So hold on to that annotation tool for just a second, because I have one more that I want to ask you, because I love to see who is in the room. Now, if you'll notice, I have this scale, and you probably identify either as a facilitator or trainer, meaning you may even be into AI. Would love to know if you're one of those. You may be a visual person, so you may be a visual facilitator or a scribe or recorder. And you'll notice that scale that I have in the middle, the pull and push, really is, if you're a trainer or a scribe or recorder, you're really putting information out there for people to receive. If you're more of a facilitator or a visual facilitator, chances are you're working with groups to harvest information. You're really pulling knowledge from the group. So I'd love for you to take that annotation tool and go ahead and stamp where you see yourself. And it might be in a few places. I certainly live in all of those worlds, or you could put one right in the middle. That's right. And again, this just helps us know who is in the room. Are we mainly facilitators and trainers, or are we mainly visual people? And that helps me know how customized I can take this. Oh, do we have one lonely visual facilitator in the room? I'll join you. And again, if you're having trouble finding the chat or finding the annotation tool, should be at the top of your screen under view options. Yep. I knew we had a few other visual facilitators in the room as well. So, and a writer. Great. Thank you for joining us. Good. All right. I'm going to do a quick countdown. Again, thank you for helping me have a visual of who is in the room. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you are welcome to put away your annotation tool for now. I don't believe we're going to be using it anytime right away. So I'll clear this out. You don't need to annotate anymore. You can just close that little window. There's a little red dot. And so I just want to talk about a few housekeeping things. Um, you did receive access to the template via email, and also people were having some issues with their email. If you've been having some issues, please feel free to let me know. Um, but we're going to put it in the chat as well, if you don't mind, Mary, putting in the chat the handouts that I sent out. It's some pre-work worksheets in case you missed them. And if you did miss my email, just note that the emails are coming from Tech Host Academy. So please search your junk folder. If they didn't come through, please let me know. And I've been having a little bit of issue with my email provider. So I'm going to see if I can't fix that. And if you don't have the handouts printed out already, don't worry. Simply grab a piece of paper and something to draw with. It's super, super simple. I will be going over some step-by-step things on how to draw things today. And some of you might find this really fascinating. And for the visual practitioners in the room, I would invite you to draw circles around me because you probably will be able to do that. Just know that no one's looking at your work today. You can just take some notes. You can just take your time. If you don't have that handout, then Mary, if you could please put that in the chat, that would be great. It's something that you can use going forward. There's a couple of things, and Mary's putting the link to the handouts, and she's actually putting the handouts in the chat. And so, great. Thank you for doing that. Now, I trust that you watched the 2 videos so we can dive right into the purpose of today's session. But a couple of things, just want to make sure that if you have any questions, if they're timely and relevant, please feel free to unmute. Um, I'd love to answer questions on the fly. If you have a question, you're like, I'm not sure if this is really relevant, not sure where this belongs, please use 3 question marks before asking the question and put that in the chat. That gives me an opportunity to see them a little bit more visually. And Mary can also capture those for me in case I miss them. Now, you are welcome to private chat Mary if you're having any technical issues, but I do ask that you put to everyone if it's a question about the class, mainly because I have to stop and look at direct messages that are to me. But if you could please put that to everyone. I believe in the law of group dynamics, and that is if you have a question about the class, then chances are someone else is going to have the same question and will benefit from seeing that question and having that answered. So again, I welcome all of you to interrupt me for timely relevant questions or put 3 question marks in the chat. One last thing, I will be holding office hours. Now, I don't believe this was in the description, and it's not required whatsoever, but I do want to share this with you so that you have it. We'll be holding office hours on Mondays at the exact same time we are meeting now. Keep in mind that in North America, we are changing from daylight savings time to standard time. And so you might want to use a meeting organizer or something like that to just double check the time. So our next session, open office hours, again, you can come and go within the 10 a.m. to noon. And that's just for you to come and share some of your work, ask additional questions. Those sessions will not be recorded, but they're there if you want to dive deeper into some customizing some of your templates. Great. And so we will use the same Zoom link. You won't have to sign up, just simply show up. And you'll want to bring any agendas, scenarios of past or upcoming client sessions that you would like help incorporating visuals and examples of your work for review. If you'd like me to look at what you've done and give you some feedback or resources, again, these sessions are not required and aren't recorded. But let me dive into the purpose of today is so the purpose is of this 3-week course is to learn practical applications of integrating appreciative inquiry and visuals into meeting designs. Today's purpose is to get some simple icons down on paper and experience some visual templates firsthand. So I'm going to be sharing lots of resources for you to use, to customize however you wish. And then how are we going to do that? Well, we started the session off today with appreciative imagery. Um, and then we'll do some intros and elevator pitches based on the pre-work and the handouts that I gave you. The assignment for today is really, really simple. So I'm sure you can just make it up on the fly if you didn't have a chance to do the pre-work. Then we're going to go over some no kidding templates in the dream stage. And then I want you to experience a needs assessment template as well. And then we'll do a wrap up and next steps. And then the payoff today, my hope is that you will leave inspired to dream and include these visuals or however you wish to customize them in your work. All right, so let me start out with a meeting principle. Now, I love meeting principles. This is a great way to kind of set a frame. And this is really about your learning experience. And so, what do I mean when I talk about the balcony and the dance floor? This comes from Ron Heifetz, the co author of the book, The Practice of Adaptive Leadership. And I want you to know that everything offered in this course is designed for you to experience, and you have permission to use it when facilitating with clients. I simply ask that if you would like maybe a team or a client to learn these methods that I'm teaching, that you send them to the courses at the Center for Appreciative Inquiry for further study. So, but what I mean by this balcony and the dance floor is that there are going to be times where you are on the dance floor experiencing some of these visual exercises, and sometimes where you're at the balcony, and from the balcony view you're taking in this information, thinking to yourself, how can I incorporate this into my work? Now, some of us as learners can switch through that pretty easily. Sometimes we get stuck in one or the other. Some examples of this would be if you're stuck at the balcony, you're not quite experiencing what it's like to be the student in that case. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, how would I apply this? And if we're in that process of experiencing it and you're asking the questions, now how would we do this in a client situation? Maybe wait and jump on the dance floor for a moment and then save that question till the end so we can really talk about the applications of that. But sometimes we also get stuck on the dance floor and you might leave going, oh, that was a wonderful experience, but how do I apply that now? And so bring those questions either to an office hours or you can bring it to the next session. Okay. Any questions about the meeting principle, balcony, and the dance floor? And again, feel free to unmute. All right, let's make some appreciative agreements. So here's where, again, you might want to grab that annotation tool. It's should be at the top of your, if you're on a computer or a laptop, you might see your sharing my screen view options and choose the text tool and go ahead and type right on the slide some appreciative agreements. What would we like to agree on in terms of this learning environment, you as a student? And we're going to dive deeper into this, but I just want to give this as an example of how instead of doing ground rules, we may add some we may use the term appreciative agreements as a way to say, here is what we can do for each other to make the most out of our time together when we meet. So again, grab that text tool. Great. Be curious and let go of perfection. Yep, great, curious. Be here now. If you're having trouble with typing in using the annotation tool, Please feel free to put that in the chat and I'll copy that over. Bring a spirit of curiosity. Excellent. Be non judgmental. Love it. Be vulnerable to share what we know and don't know. That's absolutely right. I really believe that the knowledge is in the room. And there's going to be some instances where I may ask folks, because I know your expertise, do you have something to add? And if you're like, not at this time, that's fine. I don't mean to put any pressure on you, but I know some of you are very experienced in AI. Some of you are very experienced in visuals. And so I would love for you to stay vulnerable and say, what do you know about this? And if you have a question, please ask, because again, others will benefit from seeing those questions. Great. And I have one here in the chat that I'll type over. I'll take over here. Bring more power to my writing. Great. Okay to explore. That's right. These are wonderful agreements. And this is something that you can have your participants do in a meeting. You can have them choose some agreements on terms of how they're meeting, how they're communicating. Now, these are really based about your experience as a learner. So we're on the dance floor now. But in some cases, it might be about maybe facilitating a conversation. Okay, I'm going to switch to the next slide, but I'm going to keep these up for a moment because I want you to be able to see how some things you don't need to be Pablo Picasso to create a positive impact with visuals. Okay, I love that. Oops. I've got some drawings here. These might seem a little silly, but notice on the left here, you've got some kind of a grumpy face, sort of a it's okay face, and then getting a little happier and then just beaming with joy, right? So I love this practice with compassion. And what I'd like to do here is, again, just move some of these around, no ground rules, smile. Yep, love that. Okay to explore. I would say that's probably somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the middle. Remaining curious, I think, is really important. Be non-judgmental. So that's interesting because it's a positive but a negative sort of at the same time. When we are curious, we are not judgmental. So these kind of live together. Being here now is very important. Be curious, let go of perfection. Yeah. If someone were to say something like, there's no stupid question, which I agree, but it doesn't have the same energy as practice compassion or stay curious. So I just wanted to show you how some of this, how some of these things, the way we word things can have a different meaning, can have a different feeling. Embrace learning and growing individually and collectively. I love that. It feels like we're really, I love the embracing the learning, of course, but that growing is like we're honoring it for ourselves and we're honoring it for each other. So all of these are really great. There's nothing negative here. There is you don't need to be Pablo Picasso to create positive impact with visuals. That's very true. It's sort of a but you can create positive impact with visuals no matter your level of experience, right? So just notice those very, very small key things. Anything anyone else would like to add or any questions about this? I'll do a quick countdown and take another picture. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to clear this out. And in the next slide, I want us to be thinking about, and you're kind of already there, you're all ahead of me, learning agreements, right? So you've asked some really, really, you put some really great things down in terms of our agreements today, our appreciative agreements. And some learning agreements is that no matter what, no matter where you are on your skill set, your skill level and your experience, you're going to have questions. And I hope that you have a lot of them. So I just want you to know that if you get stuck, be sure to ask, even if you're having trouble finding the words. It's okay to stumble over your own words. I talked a lot about already, I talked about the law of group dynamics being that if one person has a question, chances are others have the same question or will benefit from you asking that question. And it's okay if you ask the question several times because you might not have heard it the very first time, right? Also, another law of group dynamics is that The answer is in the room. I talked about harvesting this great knowledge that's in the room. So as you ask questions, I promise to do my best to give you the very best answer that I have. And again, many of you are far more advanced in appreciative inquiry or visuals than I am. I'm here to really build a bridge for us to come together to be able to use these. Okay. So, any other learning agreements that we want to be able to make as you're thinking about this, or any other questions at this time? Okay. So, what is appreciative inquiry? Well, appreciative inquiry is a strength based positive approach to leadership development, personal, and organizational change. Now, that's the noun. I like to think of appreciative inquiry as a verb. And that is, in the way that I like to say it, is that we are inquiring into what's positive, what gives us life, and what helps us thrive. And when we add visuals, we get to see the strengths and possibilities. We actually get to see those so that we may use what we learn as a foundation from which to make decisions and grow. And so I have two different templates that you may have pulled from me, one from the free sessions, and then the one that I'm giving you today. And so there's the 4D appreciative inquiry model and the 5D, and you are welcome to use either. I've shared both of those with you, and I'm also going to follow up with a PowerPoint that you can fill and type in if you don't want to write it out. And really, the only difference here is that the 5D includes the define stage. And we kind of covered the define in the very first intro video that I put out. The discover we covered in the free mini session. But then I also want to make sure that we'll just do a high level overview and some of the icons that I use in the discovery phase and then in the dream phase. And what I want to be able to show you now is sort of the graphic. And I'm not sure if this made it into any of the emails, but it's certainly part of how I'm speaking about. This is sort of your visual agenda, if you will, for this class. So we talked about defining, we're kind of gathering the information about what this class is about. In this session, we'll go over some of these. Actually, I'll just quickly show you how to draw these icons. Then I'm going to talk about some actual no kidding templates that you can use in your practice. When we get into the design phase, and this is why I have two meetings, or I have two open sessions, office hours for you to come in, and an entire session on design, because we're going to spend a bulk of our time working on this. So I will give you some pre-work to help you out with this. And then finally, in the deliver stage, we're going to talk a lot about tools. So if during this process you're wondering about third-party tools, if you're wondering about the digital tools I'm using, the manual tools I'm using, any of the gear that I'm going to be showing, we're going to cover a lot of that in the deliver stage. If you have questions in the meantime and you're like, I want to implement this right away, go ahead and ask, but just know that that's what we're pulling from. So what I'd like to talk a little bit about in terms of your handouts, and if you don't have them, again, not to worry. I know that some of you may not have been able to check your email yesterday or today with those. I think I may have also sent them out last week. But what we have here is at the top, your elevator speech. Now that is something you're going to want to write quickly here in the next couple of minutes if you haven't already. I also ask you to share your differentiators, and I want you to be thinking about your clients. Now, again, any of these graphics that I've drawn here, you are welcome to use and customize for your needs. So how are we going to do this? So I'd love to invite you, and we'll invite you in just a moment, to the Padlet. And so how many of you, just a quick show of hands, have worked in Padlet? Oh, good. I love introducing new tools. So a couple of you have. That's wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, so let me get that up so I can show you. I'm going to give you some instructions so that we can make this super easy, and then we'll give you access to it so that you're not juggling too many things at once. And so what Padlet is a third-party collaboration tool that's actually very quite simple. And what I've done here is I've organized it so that we have columns. Each person in the class has a column. You can scroll to the right. All of the names are in alphabetical order, so you can easily find yourself. And we're going to go into breakout rooms for just a few minutes. And I want you to introduce yourself. Now, if you have a headshot handy, great. If not, you can always add this later. But you're going to find your name, and underneath your name, you're going to click the plus button. And here, you can write intro, if you have a headshot, you can choose this camera icon, either to take a picture of yourself or this upload image to do that. And then under there, you can write something, you can just type in your elevator speech. So the elevator speech comes first. Or pitch, elevator pitch, my apologies. Your elevator pitch comes first. And again, you can keep adding to this. I put mine out and I want you to practice saying this with each other. So my name is Heather Leavitt Martinez. I'm an appreciative inquiry facilitator and visual practitioner working with other facilitators and professional visual strategists who want to leverage AI and visuals in their work to reach their desired outcomes and bring value to their clients. Now that was really hard to do in one breath. And maybe some of you know what some of those words are, but to me, that was super boring. So if I were to simplify it, I would say I use visuals to inquire into the positive so that others may see and feel what makes them thrive. Oh, people can hear that and kind of relate to that. And then I'm writing some of my differentiators and then some of my contact. And again, you don't have to do this all during the breakout. I want us to keep coming back to this Padlet again and again. It's a way for us to get to know one another. And below that, you'll have you can keep adding to the bottom by adding this plus sign, any other visuals that you create during this course. Now, I'll be putting up all of the visuals that I create so that you have them here and you can go back and refer to them. And this is just a great way for us to collect a really great visual library over the next 3 weeks. So again, if you can just in the next couple of days, if you could definitely introduce yourself and put that and that'll be at the top, and anything you add will come down at the bottom. Okay. So any questions so far with that before we go into breakouts and before we share the Padlet with you? This is really your opportunity to get to know one another. All right. No questions? Okay, well, we'll definitely be around. I'm going to ask Mary to break out the groups for 3 people, 3 to 4 people, and let's go for about 8 minutes if we can. I know that's not a lot of time, and Mary, are we ready? Yep, you're good to go. All right, well then let's strike a pose and we'll see you in 8 minutes. I always wonder when folks come back early, is it because they were finished talking or because somebody hit the button because it was in the way? You get push button finger. What happened? A little bit of both sometimes. All right. Welcome back, everyone. Looks like some people got cut off. How was that for you? Go ahead and unmute. How was that?
Not enough time. Not enough time.
Never enough time. Never enough time. So let's talk a little bit about Padlet. So was anybody successful in posting anything? We got a few people there. Uh-oh, no. Okay. Let me just go over this one more time. And I apologize. I was excited about you getting into the room. You're going to scroll to the right till you find your name. And I'm just going to choose Mary here. You're going to click that plus button and you can type intro or whatever you want at the top. And then you can upload a picture by clicking here. It will open up another window and you can navigate to a picture of yourself if you have one. That would be great. Then I'd love for you to put in your elevator pitch. We didn't do our pitches verbally to each other, didn't have time to start Padlet. Okay, got it. All right, so I'd love for you to put in your elevator pitch. It can be, whatever you filled out on your handout. And then we'd also love to find out what's your differentiators and any other contact information. Okay. And then you're going to click publish. So this is good for me to know how it went for you. And then, you can go back at any time. And in the upper right-hand corner, there's these 3 little dots. You can click edit and you can go back in and you can edit whatever you like and hit update. And so I'd love for this to be a home play instead of homework, a home play assignment for you to fill that in. Way to go, Deborah Ann. And you can always go back in and again, hit that little three little dots for you. It'll show edit because I can't edit yours. And then you can also ask people questions, right? So if you see somebody in here that you want to network with, and if everyone can put some way of reaching you, if you want to be reached, just to include just a great way to contact. So yeah, great. So Matt's saying he's putting his role at the top. That's great. And this is just a great way for us to get to know one another and a great network. Because what I truly do happen here throughout the next 3 weeks is that we can post some of the images that we have. I will be posting some of these here. And then, yes, you're welcome to do this later. I'll be posting them underneath mine. So again, you have this little plus button. Um, and so I'll put in a graphic and I'll even say how to use it. And this will give you some ideas of how to use that there. Okay. So again, go ahead and I'll put this in a follow-up email, but if you want to bookmark this Padlet, that would be great. And yes, Deborah, let's see, can you rename my profile to just Deborah? And yes, if you have a profile, I apologize, I'm scrolling around here. And I think it's not letting me do this because I might be
There you go.
sharing or something. No, it's not going to let me do it, but I'll stop share really quick. But yes, I should be able to go in there and rename it. And if it doesn't, then I'll create a new one and put your information there. But if you do have a request to rename yourself at the top, just put that plus button and put anything in there. I'll go in there and check and look at all of these and make any adjustments for you. Okay. Yes, you could certainly do this later. All right. So again, would love for this to be a repository for us to all be able to see one another and to also be able to share some graphics as we go, because you're going to create some visuals, I hope. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, and this is another visual, again, working on working from the balcony, the um, but also from the dance floor. I love asking in discovery meetings or pretty much any time. About high bar, low bar. But I like to use this with clients and I'd like to use it with you. We all have a desired outcome in mind. And just like a pole vaulter, we've got a high bar and a low bar that we want to be able to make. Oops. I don't know why it won't advance. Here we go. So what is the best possible outcome that you would like to get out of today? And I'd love, again, for you to go to that annotate tool or put that in the chat so that I can find that. But what do you want? What is your best possible outcome for today? And then what do we need or what do you need in order to feel satisfied with the time that you've invested? Now, this is what I usually ask clients. And what I'm going to ask you is, for this course, what do you envision or hope to accomplish in this course? And this is where you're going to jump onto that dance floor. Oops. I didn't mean to put it in the Padlet. I'm going to put the question in the chat. What do you envision or hope to accomplish in this course? This is going to be your low bar. You can use that annotate tool or you can put that in the chat. Take a moment to think about that. My low bar is that you have a variety of tools to use in your meeting design from discovery to delivery. So what's your low bar? What do you want to get out of this experience? Great. Experience different tools and techniques to incorporate in your practice. I guarantee that. Learn new tools and exercises that I can immediately implement in your meetings. Yep, you're going to get that. Practice using some new visuals and templates. Excellent. To have more tools to use in delivery. Wonderful. Learn how to add visual pizzazz to your conversations. These are great. I'm going to put these near the low bar. To be able to increase the power of my writing with visual aids, all possible, yes.
Heather, a silly
Yes.
question. Is there a way to like my when I typed in my font was ginormous?
Yeah.
Is there a way to make it smaller? I tried shrinking the box, but then it just shrank the box, not the text.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I believe so. Let me see.
I haven't
I
come
think you
across
can go back with your text tool and under format. So if you go to the right
it.
of that toolbar,
Oh,
there's
okay.
format and it has colors, and then at the bottom and the lower right it
Yes.
has font size.
Nice. Thank you.
So, yeah, great question. Thanks for asking that. Good. We've got some hearts here, so somebody must like someone else's too. New templates to incorporate, practice using some new visuals. Just happy to be here. The space with amazing people. That's good. Looking to make the world a better place. Good, good, good. These are all excellent low bars. Now, I would love to know, what is your high bar and what would exceed your expectations or blow your mind? What would just be like, oh my gosh, I was not expecting this? Love those high bars. Thanks for asking questions like the smaller text. Yes, absolutely. Because this is where we're on that balcony, right? Both. We're like, right now I need to know, how do I change my text size? But in the future, I want to be able to tell other people as well. Yeah, create new templates specifically for your audience. We're going to do that in the next session. It's all about customizing. Melissa's saying, learn new tools and exercises is actually your high bar. Can you please be moved over? Yep, absolutely. I obviously was too excited to answer the first. That's absolutely right. Okay. So learning new tools. Guessing that was yours there. Here we go. Good. And so this is a pretty muddled thing, but that's what happens, right? So um, as the host here, I can use my select tool and I can move things around just so that they're not laying on top of each other. Great. Create new visuals. Yes. All right. Now they're coming in. A surprising aha to apply to leading my next workshop. That's great. And you'll notice that within my handouts that I give you, I'm saying pick some easy things to start. Now, I know that's an easy thing to say, but when I decided I wanted to write a book, I was really, really scared. But one of my mentors said, do a very small thing first. So I created a 12-page zine. And then I realized, if I can just make 10 of these, I've got a whole entire book, like a real book. And so same thing here. As you're starting to do some of these visuals, if you're not confident in your drawing, don't worry. We're going to do some very simple drawings. And then we'll talk about, how do we make templates, which doesn't require a lot of drawing, but organizing information in such a way that's going to help your clients. So here we go. Have confidence in creating my own visuals that fit my context, work. That's great. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about how to build that confidence. Most of that's going to come from doing, but it's also going to come from always thinking about your client's desired outcome. All right. Have my current work style shaken up with new paradigms and tools. Wonderful. Excellent. Visual pizzazz was my high bar. Oh, I love seeing these. These are great. And so I'm going to take a picture of this and I'm going to do a quick countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And my personal high bar is that I want you to expand your appreciative inquiry and or visual practice to strengthen your facilitation toolbox and add more value to your client experiences. Now, this is important to me, and I'm going to be looking over all of what you all did, because I just took a picture of it. I'm going to be looking over that over the next 3 weeks to make sure that I'm meeting those learning expectations. So let's go ahead and start drawing. So what I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to grab a piece of paper and whatever you have with you. I want this to be a really low bar of entry in terms of what you have. It can be a pencil, it can be a pen, it could be markers if you have them. And again, I'm going to show you some of the tools that I use, and then I'm also going to dive even deeper when we get to that delivery stage. So we're just going to go over some of these icons. Actually, we'll go over all of these icons here, because in that define and discover stage, especially when you're in the discovery meeting with your client, a lot of times I'm drawing and I'm trying to keep eye contact even when I'm virtual with my clients. So I have to create very simple visuals to go along with the words that I'm writing. And sometimes I'm not even looking at what I'm writing at. So this is why I want to keep this super simple. And I want you to draw along with me. I call it a draw along because I'm literally going to draw some of these things. And when I'm in a discovery meeting, I'm asking questions like, tell me about the people on your team. And I have two ways that I draw people. One very simple way is just to draw a circle with an upside down U. This is just a person, right? So if they're talking about their people and their talents and their skills, that's how I normally draw it. Sometimes I also draw it so it looks like a body silhouette. And the reason why I do that is because I have some sticky notes that are shaped like this. And when I do that, also people, then I can put it on a really big board and I can write their name here and maybe some of their skills in it. So just later on down the road, I'll show you how we would do that. But I just simply draw a circle and this, and I might start writing people's names as they're talking about them. It might be whoever's my client is talking about a person, and I might say, what are some of their skills or strengths that we can pull from? Sometimes a client will start talking about things that happened over time. And so I will just create a timeline. It might be as simple as having a line like this. There might be certain dates or points in time that I need to note. And so I would just put those specific events or dates and put them along that line. And I'm literally drawing on top of this template when I meet with a client, right? And sometimes they talk about places. So I just create a very simple marker. So this is sort of like the marker that you might see uh, on Google Maps or something like that. And that's just a marker. And this is where we'll be talking about location. They might be talking about something that happened in the past about a person or an event. And I make that simple icon for location. And a lot of people like to talk about their ideas. So I draw light bulbs in different ways. Sometimes I'll draw a light bulb that looks like this, just starting from the bottom there. I'll draw the filament and then a couple of lines below just to show that that's where the light bulb screws in. Very simple. So you can try that too. Now, if I'm working really fast, that takes a little bit of time. I might just draw a circle, a couple squiggles, and then a couple of lines. And that to me is my really fast light bulb. And that's when I'm writing down what are some of their ideas, right? Now, sometimes people have great ideas, but that doesn't seem very doable. So it might feel kind of out there, contextual, or just so far out there that you're thinking, this seems like a dream. And you might get into that. And we're going to talk about dream in just a moment. But I sometimes will draw a cloud. And a simple way to draw the cloud, again, I just have this bottom of a cloud, just does sort of a wave, and then I'll draw like a small part of a cloud and then the big part of the cloud and then maybe a couple of other small parts. And that's just my simple cloud. And this might be a dream or a thought that they haven't fully developed yet. And I just like to use those cloud references. And then some of them might have some no kidding, very sure expectations of what they want to accomplish. And I like to use the visual of a box as sort of like a product or something that they're going to launch or ship. So I'll draw a diamond and then I'll draw 3 parallel lines, all the same size because we want perspective here. And that's sort of a box. But if we put some tape on top, and we have the tape running down the side, and it can also come up from the bottom, then it looks like something that's been shipped. So this might be, say, a goal, right? Or if you're thinking, well, that's way too many lines, now we're getting into perspective, you might just create a goal like a target. And it can be as simple as having 2 things, 2 concentric circles, or 3 concentric circles. And then if you want to put it on a stand, you can. That's how easy some of these drawings are. Does anybody have one that they'd like me to redraw for you? Go ahead and unmute.
What is the thing that looks like a person over to the left of the timeline? I forgot. I was drawing
Just
something else.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So we have two people. The first one is just this really simple person. This thing kind of looks like a person. I made the neck way too big. So you could draw a head, shoulders, and then their arms, maybe coming in a little bit so you can draw their legs. And the reason why I draw it like this is because I have some sticky notes that look like this. So if I'm working at the wall and we're talking about people, instead of just using a sticky note and writing someone's name in it, this is the outline of their silhouette. And then I can write, say, their name at the bottom and maybe some attributes about them, their role or their strengths in the middle, right? So that's a little bit more advanced. If I'm just making a conversation in a discovery meeting with a client, I'm just going to draw something like this as my own sort of visual icon to show people. So apparently my drawings have gone a little bit into the dream phase, but this is great because I've already started asking the clients about their project. Tell me a time when you had a successful project, right? I kind of know what their project is going to be in this defined stage. I know about their project or the upcoming session, whatever that is. We've already done this type of research, right? But now I'm in the discovery meeting with them, asking them questions. Tell me about a time when you were successful. And what I'm trying to get from them are those strengths and skill sets that we have to go into the dream phase. Now, when we get into the dream phase, and this goes back to this drawing, I actually have um, 5 different visuals that I want to show you, and we've already done high bar, low bar. So this is saying, what would you like to accomplish out of this experience? You can create all kinds of appreciative questions around any of these, and I'm going to give you these visuals so that you have them. But that high bar, low bar is, what do you want to get out of today? Or what do you want to get out of this project going forward? Right? And so let's talk about some of those other visuals. And we are actually at the top of the hour. Why don't we instead take a quick 5-minute break? This will give you some time to, yay, someone's loving that. Let's take a quick 5-minute break. And I will start a timer and I'll turn on some music so that when the music, you don't have to listen to the music, you can turn it down, but I will put on some music so that when the music ends, you know that the time is also up. So I'll give us 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back, folks. I think that breakouts and meetings are never long enough. Who's with me on that one? Yeah. All right. So I'd love to go over, let's see, I'm going to cover 3 different charts and then we're actually going to experience one. But first, I just want to do a quick overview of why. Let's just do just a quick check in of what we're doing and why we're doing it, because I think it's so very important here. So back to this visual agenda. We've talked about some of those really simple icons. This is where I do most of my just really simple drawing. And then I like to create and use templates. And these are pretty general templates that I usually use in my dream state. And having those templates help guide the conversation. And then when we get into the design phase, we're really taking the information that we got from the dream phase. So, what are those desired outcomes from the client? And so, I want to make sure that I'm really doing those customized visuals. And that's where we're going to get to your high bars that many of you wrote. And then when we get to that delivery stage, yes. So on the dance floor in this class, I'm going to be talking about a lot of those tools that we're using. If you've got lots of questions about how to deliver that, but if I'm really dreaming about that final stage of delivery and how people are feeling, that's what I'm building towards, right? So this cycle truly is a cycle in that we're doing all of these things to get to that delivery stage. And it, to me, I feel like it goes back to one of the most important steps, which is the dream. This is where we want to get to those desired outcomes because everything else is going to fall under that. So let me share with you some of these visuals that I like to use, and then we'll experience the very last one so that you can have hands-on experience. Some of these are they're very simple, but this one in particular is one that Christina Merkley has created, and she's given us explicit permission to use this chart for learning purposes. Now, it's important to note the source. Some of you, this may or may not align with your beliefs, but it's inspired by Abraham Hicks, and this chart is based on their law of attraction work. So when Christina Merkley created this, I explained to her that I think this would really work in the dreams stage of appreciative inquiry, and she agreed. So we're going to go ahead and put in the chat, if you don't mind, Mary, the information on where to find this. And again, it's going to be in the Padlet. All of that's going to be in the Padlet so that you have it. Great. We have a great question from Frederico. How to profit from or use visual aids that are available in Word, PowerPoint, etc. Well, you certainly could use those visual aids there. And the way to profit, I would say, you can't sell the things that you find there because that's already copyrighted information, but you can do it in the service part. Right. So that's when we are helping clients, whether we're coaching individuals, we're working with teams or organizations. So let me know if you have more questions than that. But we can use Word and PowerPoint. What I'm mainly going to be teaching in this course is really how do we create those customized visuals? And we can even talk about some of those tools in the the open office hours too. So the wouldn't it be nice if is really based on what are we dreaming of? What do we want to create? And this particular chart, as you can see, there's plenty of room for writing. And so the way that Christina Merkley does this, and I will show this in just a bit, is that we're asking questions of the participants, and those participants are sharing with us their response. And so there's a whole set of questions and instructions that go along with this that you're going to want to put, that you'll want to check out if you're interested in law of attraction work. And then another one that I think is very simple, because I just taught you how to draw a cloud, and I'm sure you could draw a sun, is this understanding dreams. So if the goal of the client is pretty clear about what they want, then you can start to fill the clouds around that. You can use this graphic or you can draw your own. And what do your clients want? Or in this case, you could be asking yourself, what do you want for your clients? What aspirations do they have? What goals do you want them to reach? What strengths and skills do they have to get there? Really thinking about how to leverage those. They may have already talked about that in the discovery stage. And what strengths and skills do you have to help them? So I'm kind of wording this in such a way that it's for you planning your visual journey with your clients, right? But you can also use this with your clients to help them come up with a dream. Okay, if you have a dream and you want this, here's your dream, it's in the center, then let's talk about what that's going to take. And they may not know yet. So they might still just be dreaming. How do they want this meeting or this project to turn out? Tell me about what that looks like. And then you can consolidate that into a goal. And the reason why we want to do this is it really truly does help people understand whatever they're saying is getting put down onto paper. So again, any questions about this? Because this is super simple. I'm just going to sneak to the back of my computer to plug something in. Any questions about dream a dream? This is where anything goes, truly. This is where anything can happen, anything goes. Where we say that there's no judgment about ideas. This is where we can say all ideas are valuable. And even though they may or may not be considered, this is the time to get them out on paper or digitally, however you choose to do this. Okay. And then finally, there's one called Distill the Essence. And I do want to draw this one with you. I'd love for you to do a draw along with me on this one, because I think it's important to see how easy it is to draw some of these charts. And the first two that I showed you, the first one is Christina Merkley's. You can certainly download her template and walk people through that process. But then when it comes to distilling the essence, this can look a lot of different ways, and it doesn't have to look exactly like this. So again, grab your paper and a pencil or anything to write with. And let's go ahead and draw along. So I'm going to draw using a gray marker just to start, but I'm also going to have a black marker to be the words that I write because I want there to be low contrast. What I mean by that is I don't want the words that I write to conflict with the drawings that I make. And I may even want to use a little bit of color. So say we're having a brainstorming session and people are sharing a lot of their ideas. A lot of times, if I'm working very quickly, I might just draw out a whole bunch of light bulbs. Now, it's not quite a light bulb yet. That's just the inside. And I might just do it very, very quickly like this because those ideas are coming so fast, I can barely keep up with them, right? And then once they start sharing their ideas, I might do it in black or a dark blue, something that's really going to have contrast, right? And actually, it's probably one idea per light bulb. And these light bulbs kind of act, they really act as sort of a bullet or what we call a flag, right? And pretty soon there's so many ideas that what happens is that people start getting kind of antsy. There's, I like to say that people kind of pop like popcorn at different times, right? Some people in the meeting, they're like, all right, let's get to consensus already. While other people are like, I really love floating around in this idea world. And so you've got all these ideas happening and you say, okay, I kind of sense as a facilitator, you can say, I kind of sense that something's going on and we need to start pulling this together, right? Now, how do we know this? Well, I'm going to grab another sheet of paper. I'm going to do a little bit of a balcony moment here. And I experienced this a few months ago with a client where someone was ready to come to consensus and they're like, what are we talking about? Why are we still talking about ideas? And I said, now hold up. I just want to remind you that every meeting goes through a process where there's a start and there's a finish. And a lot of times I like to use that box as the finish line, sort of like, okay, we've come up with something and now it's nicely boxed away. And at the very first part of the meeting, what we're doing is we're diverging. And this is where all of the ideas and the questions and the wondering comes in. This is where you get to explore. A lot of times, what I like to say, especially if this is a very, maybe it's a very hot topic or it's emotional or political or there's things going on in the world, this is where people can unpack their backpacks, if you will, right? So you're in a meeting, we're getting started, we're really diverging, we're letting everybody put everything out into the table. But then what needs to happen is that we need to eventually converge. Now, some of you might be familiar with this. I believe it's from Sam Kainer's work. It may also be from other practice methodologies use this as well. If any of you have ever, if you're interested in Sam Kainer's work, his book, um, Group Participatory Decision Making, is excellent for new facilitators or even experienced facilitators on how to help this facilitated process. But in order to get to the converge part, we can't just decide. We need to have a series of criteria or lenses from which we're going to make decisions, right? So we may need to make some decisions. So we're going to need to have some criteria. And then once that criteria is made, then we can decide which of these ideas actually get through. Some of them don't make it through these different lenses. But then once they do, they can then turn into the what's that final thing that we're going to do. So that's a little bit of a sideways. I took you gave you a little bit of a tour to Sam Kainer's work in terms of diverging and converging. Does anyone have anything to add or questions about that? Because we're going to go back to the visual we were just creating and go a little bit further. So again, a really quick way to draw things out. So now we've got all of these ideas. What are we going to do with them? Well, we need some kind of, like I said, criteria. And a lot of times I will use an image of a funnel. And again, notice I'm drawing in gray because I kind of want it to be in the background. But for that funnel, this is where the criteria comes in. And what I like to do to balance things out is that if all of these ideas were really coming from the space of like the brain, and this is my silly little drawing of the brain. I draw two parallel lines and then I draw some squiggly lines on both sides to show the brain. Then what I might say is, okay, these are really great ideas, but I may not call them out as being heady, but I might say, okay, but how do we want to feel when we get there, right? So this might be about feelings. We also might say, who is this going to impact? So we might need to be thinking about people. We might say, on a global level, who is this going to impact? So this is really about the planet. You might even talk about, is this going to affect the environment? And then there's always the metric of profit, right? So people, planet, profit are very common criteria when decisions are being made. But don't make those assumptions. Ask your client, what are these? What are some of the criteria that we want to ensure that the best ideas get used or the ideas that are the most relevant to our cause? Some of that might also be mission driven. It might be vision driven. And again, go back to that. We're in the dream state. We're trying to take all these great ideas and say, narrow it down. And it might be that this is thinking really, really big, like almost strategic. But if we're like, okay, for this one session, we know what are some of the parameters now. So now we know we have like 1 hour to do all of this in, right? Or it might be we might be thinking about you know what can we do in this one, what do we need to do in this one session, like what needs to happen. And eventually what's going to happen is we're thinking about all the things and how many of these things can come through, and those become, okay, we're going to actually do X number of things. Like we might pick too many, so when we go to build the agenda, we might have to limit ourselves because of time or space. We can worry about that later. But just to mention, we don't have to get into the planning just yet, but just to mention, hey, this is one session. It might be 1 hour long. What can we possibly do in this one event? Now, from there, we can say, okay, we're going to do these 3 things. These are the things that are going to happen in that time. And you take this idea into an actual exercise. And we're going to dive deeper into this when we get into the design phase. But this just helps them gives them a voice in saying, okay, no, we got to get this done. We got to make sure that we do this in the meeting. And it could be an activity or an exercise. And they may or may not know what that looks like yet. That's you as the designer to come up with that. But what you're ultimately trying to do in this process is help them get to their desired outcome. What is it that they want to accomplish in this upcoming session that you're going to be designing an agenda for, right? And what the reason why visuals can be so powerful, as you can see, if we are going through this process, we're building on ideas, we're inspired by each other, then we're feeling like we're coming to consensus. Those folks that want to get there, it's like, okay, I know we're going to get there. So let's come up with some criteria. And the folks that are ready to get there, the ones that don't want to share ideas anymore, they're like, I can come up with the criteria. This is what's important. This is what's important to us. And you may even ask them, okay, maybe a few of your criteria conflicts. Is one more important than the other? Can we let something through in order to get to what it is we want to walk away from in this session? So I call this distill the essence. So what questions do you have? Oops. Yeah. Oh, you're really low.
Oh,
Can
I
barely
know
hear you.
I'm having issues. Is that any better?
Little bit. Who is this?
Susanna, I can
Oh,
type it
Susanna, there
in.
you are.
I know something's going on with my stuff. Sorry.
That's all
Can
right.
you give an example, like of I follow an idea through the funnel, like an idea, and then through the criteria, and how does it then become an exercise or an activity?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We're not going to get into the prioritization yet
Yeah.
because we'll do that next time. But yes, this is a great question to ask now. So let me ask, does anybody have an example that they would like to see me work through this? Because that's better than me just making it up if we can make something practical. If you have something either in the past or coming up that you're like, hey, I would love to see this, how this would work through the funnel. And you don't have to have the answers. I'll work it through the funnel, maybe ask you questions. Kelly, I see you're unmuted. Do you have something? I'd love for you to give me something.
Sure. I know of and work with an organization that is very focused on developing new business, and they're a service organization. So they provide services for very large corporations. And they're thinking, how do you do this? How do you stand out? What fresh approach could you take to the process of developing new business aside from the reams of information that's out there, all the tried and true, maybe some of the tried and true, maybe not, maybe some new things. And they
Yeah.
seem to be kind of stuck.
Right. Great. Oh, I love this. So what I'm hearing you say is this is a business that they want to develop new business. They're a
Mhm.
service organization and they know that there's a lot of different things out there, but maybe how do they decide what to choose? Right. And so this would
Exactly.
be so this is a great opportunity to get everyone's voice. And I'll tell you why that's important. This isn't just coming from the top down, but by having this conversation and saying everyone's voice. And so it might be that in your discovery meeting, or when you're at that dream stage, whether it's the discovery meeting or if you have an opportunity to hold something like this, you say, who needs to be invited? Who needs to be in this room? And
Right.
if the boss says just me, say, okay, but do you need to ask someone for some of their ideas? Maybe they don't want everybody to be in the room, but they
Right.
want to make sure they pull from those ideas. Try to get as many voices as possible because you want as many ideas as possible. And as a facilitator, make sure that you say, now, not all of these ideas may happen. So even though you're giving your energy to this, just know that we need to put it through this criteria. So what could some of those criteria pieces be? And I'll see if anybody has any ideas. I think one of the most important things, if they want to develop new business, that they don't lose their brand, that
Mhm.
they keep in mind their own brand, right? They also will be thinking about their own mission and vision. They need to be clear about that if they're going to put out their brand.
Right.
What are some other things that might be criteria for them?
Um, on the other side, thinking about the expense of developing new business is important to them, keeping it
Exactly.
low. Mhm.
Do they have a budget?
Right.
And where are they going to spend that budget? Is it going to be on the end, on the marketing side, or is it going to be on the planning side? Have they even planned for this? Have they even budgeted for having these
Mhm.
kinds of conversations? The amount of people that they're going to have to bring into the room to operationalize whatever it is they're coming out with. They might just say, we want new business, but have you even thought about how much that's going to cost you?
Right.
Is there money in doing this, right? Excellent. And Melissa, I did see your question in the chat. I'll get to that after this. This is great.
Oh, but coming
Anything
back,
else
I
yeah.
think timelines.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. So that
Mhm.
goes right with the budget, doesn't it? What's it going to take for them to pull it off? And how much time are they going to give themselves? Right? That's great. So they've taken some of these ideas, they've thought about, yeah,
I will say also a major criteria will be what culture we want this organization to have,
Mm.
values
that's
and
right.
beliefs.
Very much
Yes.
so. Yep.
Values and beliefs under their culture. Yeah, these are great.
Mhm.
And you know what's great about this? This is really messy, isn't it? And so going back to Melissa's question, how do I remain present with the client while drawing these icons? Also, do you ever encourage or invite clients to join you? Absolutely. If we were all in a room, or if we wanted to use something like Miro or Mural, or even something as simple as Google Slides or a Google Doc, I would put something like this on a page and I would say, everybody grab a sticky note, whether it's a virtual sticky note or if it's a real sticky note, and let's write these up here, right?
Mhm.
And so someone might have a sticky note around culture and say, okay, can you say more about that? And so I would say definitely get people involved in this process when you can. Sometimes when it's in a discovery meeting and it's you and a client and maybe one other person, you can do most of the drawing. But I'll tell you that people can listen and think faster than you can draw. And you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I can't draw that fast. Well, the thing is it takes time to talk too and for them to come up with their ideas. So you can draw something like this and it becomes a focal point for them to think and have a conversation around. You're not a machine. You don't have to write every single thing down. You do have to write some of the key pieces. So getting them involved also slows down the process a little bit. And as you can see, I'm not drawing really complicated icons here. This is pretty simple. Yeah. So it should be just enough to have that conversation. I don't try to overdo it. Now, when you do see big, beautiful drawings of conversations, those are usually done by graphic recorders or illustrators who are trained, and that's all they're doing. They're not facilitating. They don't have to think about the next question. So in this case, we're using just a really, really simple thing. And you could have a template that you've drawn out and even printed out or photocopied or have on a slide where you've created some of these things or use the one that I've given you. You've already created that gray part in the background and you're typing or writing on top of it, right? You're just seeing me do it live because I wanted you to see me draw these things. Yeah.
Thank
Good.
you.
So, yeah. So now we've got all these ideas. We don't know what they are. It's okay. This is a scenario, but we've got some really great criteria. And this is where you, as the facilitator, you don't have to decide anything. The client is going to then decide, okay, what things get through here. And you take the easy things first. You say, okay, this one actually meets all the criteria. That's a no-brainer. It's going to get done. Well, this one, it checks off some of them. So yeah, maybe you might even draw like a dotted line and say, okay, that one is kind of a maybe, right? But this solid line is a yes, like a no kidding yes. And you're like, well, this one over here, it's pretty good, but it doesn't meet all the criteria. But boy, did people have a lot of energy around it. So you might draw some different lines to show, how people are like, yes, 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 this is a total yes, this is a maybe, this is a okay, this might be a what I like to call a hidden gem. Like we need to think about this. And then we can go into a whole nother process, which we won't talk about today, but we will talk about in the next session is how do we then prioritize? And then how do we put that into a timeline? And then how do we decide what we're going to put money to? Because we will have created all of this great criteria and we're going to pull that through the entire process. Okay. This is just the dream state. That's it. It's kind of interesting how far we can get along in the process, huh? Yeah. Good. What were the names of those other things that people could also draw on? Deborah, I might need you to expand on that. What did you mean? What did I say?
Yeah, I couldn't figure out the words, but when the question was asked about how to get folks to also participate, and you throw up some names of, oh, they could use this MFL. I don't even know what you said anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So this is really great. And we're definitely going to dive deeper into this into delivery. But right now I'm just using paper. What is it? Right now I'm just using markers on paper, and I'll get to your question. And the technology I'm using is an IPEVO document camera. And we're on Zoom, right? So then if we want to do this more digitally, meaning we have a third-party collaboration tool, Padlet's a pretty simple one. You can also use Miro or Mural. And both of those can be very visual. You can put your own templates on them. And so you can already have this in there and people can put sticky notes on them. And you as the facilitator can just ask the questions and help people get their get their stickies where they need to go. And you could even hire a tech host or some type of a production assistant to help with that process as well, with the technology side. So you as a facilitator can really focus on seeing what's happening in the virtual room, right? Yeah. And then I'll throw one more out. It's not visual, but it's a really great, it would align with this process really well. It's called Path Space. So you could go to any one of these. I believe they're all .coms and check out these tools. And Path Space is one where you have a bunch of ideas, you cluster them, you prioritize them, and then you can make decisions. And I've worked with Path Space. You can time it out however you want, but I've taken it where in 10 minutes we can take a bunch of ideas and narrow it down into here's what we're going to do. So it's a really fast way to come to consensus. Now, yeah, you can go back and check it and make sure that, everybody agrees, but it's a really easy, clean process. Yeah. Good,
Thank you
Susanna. I'm
so
glad
much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we're starting to get into the how now, aren't we? Yeah, this is exciting. What other questions do you have about this particular graphic? Keeping in mind, this is fairly simple, right?
It's simple and very powerful. Let me tell you that. I'm just amazed because I can see how this allows you to see holistically the issue that what you are talking about. So when I say the brain, see the heart,
Yes.
that's so powerful. I mean, we tend to discuss ideas, but we never think how our hearts are reacting, our feelings and everything works together. We know that, but to see it for me is becoming very, 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 very amazing and powerful. Thank you.
Good. Good, good. I'm glad. And this is why we're doing this, because we know that visuals, I know, and those of you who are visual practitioners, you know the power of visuals. And those of you who are appreciative inquiry, you know the power of appreciative inquiry. Now let's pull these two pieces together. And this is a win-win. You'd be amazed how quickly and fast people are going to reach those desired outcomes. One of the things that I love to say, and I just have to stop because I just love saying this and I want to see your responses. So don't overdo it. I mean, if you don't react to, if it's not, you're not into it, that's fine. But imagine you're in a meeting, you're in a conference room, and it doesn't matter whether it's virtual or in person, but all of these people have had this beautiful discussion and it's been wonderful. It was heartfelt. You really felt like you were going somewhere, but then people leave the room. Whether it's virtually, you just click end or leave, or you walk out the door. What happened to all of that great conversation? If you have a visual artifact to show what the conversation was, and maybe even hire someone to make it visually better looking, then now you have a change management tool that you can take out into the rest of your organization and help have those conversations, right? But this messy thing right here, this is great. People, it's like they roll up their sleeves and they were involved. Okay, great. Okay, so Deborah, were you referring to Melissa's need to learn that?
No, I had a question for you around the process.
Yeah.
So in the little light bulbs that say ideas, so writing out people's ideas take more than like a little swirly
Right.
light, right? And
Yep.
sometimes ideas take a while for people to say them and to like translate that into like a couple of sentences. How do you
Yes.
manage that?
That's excellent. So there's two answers to that. There's the listening side and the inquiry side. So the listening side is when you say, okay, here's what I heard you say. So you are listening to all of their story, because some people, they can come right out of the gate and say it really distinctly. It's postcard size, right? But some of them have to tell this big story. So you're listening for that moral of the story, or that red thread. You're listening for what I call the key knowledge nugget. What is the one thing that they just said? It could be the tone of their voice when they said it, like they got really excited about one part, or you're hearing this big long story. And if you need help, then you've got the inquiry side, which is you say, here is what I heard you say. Is this what you meant? Could you help me distill that down? Let's turn that into a tweet. Let's put that on a post-it note. So validate their idea and then say to them, can you help me distill that down? Because that was a really big idea. And will you be the owner of that idea? If there's other people in the room that want to hear about it, would you be willing to share that again at another time?
So
Does
I'm
that
just wondering about the specific, so yes, yes, and yes, yes, and yes. And but what do you write down there? I'm like really concretely, like Judy
right?
said, let's take water breaks every hour. Or, you know, what do
Right.
you, what is the, do you have people, I do everything virtually, so would you perhaps have people go over and write in chat? Like, can let them maybe
Mhm.
articulate it? Do you pull that out? I mean, when, since you're drawing and you're keeping this, do you just do like a note? Like you just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So for most things like this, if I can get them to do it themselves in mural, it's way better because they know that they can't write down all of their thoughts. If they're just talking, they'll just keep talking. They just love to take up air, right? So that's kind of hard to facilitate that into that. So when I can, I have them turn that into a sticky note. Now, some of you may have experienced sticky note hell, where it's like everybody fills out all the sticky notes they want, and pretty soon you've got hundreds of them on a wall. Well, that's why this process of creating visual templates is going to be helpful, because we're going to say, okay, we're going to have one question. These are the answers you're going to put in this area. And some of them are going to seem really simple, like water break. That's it. So wait, can you tell us more about the water breaks? Do you want something to happen during those water breaks, or is it just for us? How long are the water breaks? Then you can, what I have people do is I have them self-harvest first, and then I have them share out. And then we can start to cluster things. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we are really getting close to the top of the hour, and I wanted us to experience this next visual. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it at the beginning of our next session, because this is a very deep, deep process, and I don't want us to for us to lose it. But any other questions about this before I do a high level of what we were going to do? We'll do a deep dive next time, and then I'll talk about our next session and what your homework will be. No questions? I know that was kind of exciting to see it in action, wasn't it? After all that thought. Okay. So what I want to show you, this is a graphic that I created in a recent class that I took, and I think a few of you may even been in this class or know of it very well. This is from Appreciative Inquiry Resilience, and it's a template that I created that I do want you to experience. So I'll take us through this next time. And it's from the book Building Resilience with Appreciative Inquiry by Joan MacArthur Blair and Jeannie Cockle. And they will be in the session with us next time. So it's exciting to have them as part of this process. And what this is a needs assessment template. And so I would still put this in the dream stage if we want to distill down even further. What do the participants in this session that we're having coming up, or in this project, what do they need? And so this is based on the Alive model. And we'll go ahead and experience that in the next session. But I wanted you to see that I'm going to take you through a harvesting process that you can repeat, but ask different questions for. This template is completely customizable. And then I'm going to harvest from you in a graphic facilitative way so that you can actually see me capturing those. And that would answer firsthand the question you just had, Deborah, of how do I do that? What part do I actually write down? What did I hear? So I will model the way so that you can see that. And if you have more questions about listening, there are actually listening models that visual practitioners train to learn in order to get really good at listening. Now, I'm not saying facilitators aren't good at listening. They are extremely good at listening. But when, as a visual practitioner, you have to listen to 10,000 words and only get to write down 12, how do you do that? And so, and I can put I'll make a few notes here and I'll listen to the recording. So some really great models are from, if you really want to understand systems, I would say, and behaviors, and what's going on in the room that might be unspoken, then the work of Kelvie Bird is really very valuable. If you're listening and you're wondering where is the conversation going, and you almost want to be a little bit of preemptive, like you can almost predict where they're going to go with it, then there's a listening model by Brandy Agerbeck that's extremely powerful, where she actually trains you to listen preemptively. So you kind of know where to put things on the page or what they're about to say. So you can help distill that down with them. And then the last one, if you're really doing, it doesn't matter what kind of template you're working on, in any scenario, if you want to create lenses to listen through, the work of Sophia Liang. And I will put all of that in a follow-up email with you with links to their website, because listening is 70%, I say, throwing a number out there, but it's a majority of what we do as visual practitioners, even though what you see are the artifacts we're drawing. That is just a small portion of what we're actually doing. So there's some really powerful listening models to know how to distill that down. So we're going to go through the Alive model as a needs assessment from the dream state. And then I'm going to talk about how you can use this model in lots of different ways to ensure that you're getting to that desired outcome for your client. Okay, so we'll experience that in the next session. Now, let's see if there's anything left here. Well, these were some of the questions, so we'll go through that. And then, so I'm curious if we met the payoff today. Did you leave inspired to dream and include some of these visuals in your work? Was there a specific tool or something that I shared with you, even if it was as simple as an icon? Do you have something that you're walking away with today? Love to see some either heads nods or thumbs up. You can even put in the chat what those were. And then reflecting back at your high bar, low bar, were your expectations met? And if not, what questions can you ask me now to further your learning? Is there something you're like, oh, I had a burning question when I came in, I got to know? And I'm going to see if there's anything else. Oh, this is just a quick reminder. I'll put this in the follow-up email. If you did not get an email from me today or yesterday, please let me know in the chat and I will try to email you another way. Yeah. Great. Okay, so Cheryl, if anybody is interested in the IPEVO camera, I recommend the VZR, that specific one. And the reason why I say that is the IPEVO, and I'll put it in the chat, VZR has the best lens. There's another one called the VZX, but it has a battery pack on the bottom. You don't need that. I mean, I have one and I've only used it one time when I was doing something on a beach. How many times do you need to be on a beach doing something? So, and I just wanted to see if I could do it. But the VZR is got the best camera. It's got all of the dials that you need on the front here. I'm going to stop sharing so you can see it. It's got all of the controls right here. Some of the other very inexpensive ones like the VZK and some of the other ones, they don't have as many bells and whistles, but they're a little bit harder to use. And if you were to ask me a question about them, I couldn't really answer you. So yeah, you would probably need to go to ipevo.com. Mary, if you don't mind seeing if you can find that for us. How easy is it to make icons and the depth of the stunning visuals? Oh, yeah. So I'm not making stunning visuals here, but I thank you. But what I am doing is I'm creating visuals that are fast and easy to learn and for people to look at. If they're universal enough, then people can see themselves in it and be able to respond to it. Good. So what questions do you have for me? Clarifying questions, other questions that can, so that you can leave here today feeling inspired. And when you get my email, I'm going to give you some pre-work or homework for the next session. And that's really going to be around be thinking about either a past client so that you can go back and say, how would I do this differently? Or a future project that you might be working on where you want to say, okay, I'm ready to make an agenda. So I'd love for you to bring your agendas to the open hours or the next session. And I will then customize what I would do. If this were my story, knowing the desired outcomes is going to be important. So I'm going to have you draft those. And then let's go ahead and take them through a possible agenda and some ways that we can visualize that. Everything from visualizing the agenda to doing some icebreakers, energizers, making decisions, having discussions, all of those. We're going to customize making visuals for all of those types of events or all those types of things. All right. So it looks like yeah, so it looks like Mary did find it on Amazon. That's awesome. Good. So did Deborah. Yep, those are the VZRs are the ones that I recommend. And if you go to ipevo.com, there's several of there. You can order it from them too, I think, or they can send you in other places. Great. So what other questions do you have for me? And I'd really love for those that are visual practitioners to really give me a hard question, or the appreciative inquiry, give me a hard question. If I don't have the answer, I know we've got great folks in the room. All right. I'm happy to stick around too. If there's more questions.
I have one. This is
Yeah.
Anne.
Yeah.
I had a little aha when you said something about leaving a meeting with a visual for people to walk out of the room and then use that. So even if I haven't done this whole process with a client and I'm just in some other meeting, like my new side job that I have, are there specific things or a quickie template or something that you can say, sort of, even if we aren't the main facilitator or running a whole meeting, are there quick little things we can do, like a meeting takeaway template or something else?
Yes, absolutely. I love that. So I'm gonna take that as a challenge because I have one way to do that. And then, so I'll come back to you with that in our next session. But there's a wonderful set of books called Vocablo. And I talk about this probably in one of the freebie sessions. And I want to just see if I can find them. In one of these books, there's three different books that I have: Vocablo 1, Vocablo 2, and Emotions. And there's one that's completely on templates. So if you're thinking to yourself, oh, right now they're talking about a potential, like, how are we going to get there? What are the steps? You can take one of these charts, either redraw it once and then just make copies of it in some way, and then go and fill that out and say, here's what it is. If you're looking for key takeaways, I do have a couple of really simple sketchnoting compositions that I'll give you access to. I'll put it in the Padlet that I'll give you access to with some instructions around that. Okay. And that just gives you here's how we pull away those key takeaways, but make it visual where people go, ooh, I like that. It's not just, cursive on like a yellow notepad, right? So now we're taking it so someone goes, I want a picture of that. I love taking sketch notes in places where when I walk away, people, like, if I go to the restroom or go up to get a drink or something, people are over there taking pictures of my sketch notes without my permission. That's what you want to create. You want to create something really tangible that people go, I want that. Even if they don't know everything that you wrote down, they just might want it to steal it. Or tell me, how would you like it to be used? That's a great question. And do you have an idea of how you'd want to use that? Yeah. Does that answer your question, or do you have something else? Yeah.
No, that was helpful in any other resources. I'm just think
Yeah.
I have a new role in an organization where I'm getting used to the culture and meetings. And it's those kind of meetings where everything's like all those idea bubbles and you wonder how people are going to get to closure. So it's more like
Yeah.
stealth visuals
Yes.
and
Yes.
organizational help when that's not my official role, but how to do it
Yes.
stealthily. But thank
Well,
you.
here's the
Tips were good.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something. You can be stealth for as long as you want, but I will tell you that if you do it well, they won't let you be stealth. They'll be inviting you to meetings. They're going to say, can you put this on the wall? And so be stealth as long as you can when you're learning. I was stealth for a couple of months, and then pretty soon they were inviting me to meetings and saying, can you do that on the wall? It's like, oh, I got to get good fast. Like, this was just for me. And I always say that these were for me. And you don't have to be someone working at the wall to incorporate visuals into your work, into your learning and your understanding, because it's visuals that help us gain that type of understanding. Good. And Mary put in the chat the Vocablo link. So thank you for that, Mary. And I will also I will format the chat and make that available to you. And I'll put in any other details, like what are these exact books, things like that. Excellent. Yep. And you can get them at Neuland.com. If any of you are not familiar with Neuland.com, they create tools that I'll be showing on the very final day, everything from markers and flip charts and things like that. And I will give you a voucher to get 15% off your first orders, because I'm an ambassador for them. So happy to share those things with you too. I can be a fire hose for resources. So watch out. and be very specific about what you want, because I will share that with you. I'm not going to hold anything back in this class, but I do want to give you some examples. And I really appreciate if you could come up with some of your own agendas. And if it's literally just a line item agenda by the next session or for the office hours, please bring those, and I will just quickly, you'll see me work on with my IPVO. These are the different visual exercises that I would recommend to accompany those agenda items. That's my specialty, is approach design using visuals and appreciative inquiry. So any other questions?
So I'm going to ask the question, and if you say we're going to do that next time or the time after, that's fine.
I'm sorry. We're just going to run out of time today. Yeah. Yeah.
It's all fine. I'm working with several groups of people around systems change, and I meet with stakeholders. It's all virtual, and we're in the delivery phase, and this is the point where everybody really just falls apart. Just saying. Right. And I but when I have them, I always want to like make sure that when they come back in, like for our touch point, that I create that energy and that buy-in. Do you have like any fun, quick tips that could be helpful?
This is really great. So first of all, I love hearing you say, we're at the delivery stage and everybody falls apart, right? So you're talking about execution. You're talking about executing what it is they've already decided on, right? Well, this is why visuals are great from the start, because you've got that whole visual trail of this is what we said we were going to do. And I'm going to show you how do you decide who are the people that need to execute on this because they're good at it. And so in terms of a really quick, like get their energy up, one of my favorites, and I just wrote a blog. If you haven't already read it, it's on the Center for Appreciative Inquiry website. And I'll put that in the chat or if someone else wants to put it in the chat, but I'll follow up with it too. It's called Start Your Meetings with a Celebration. And you can use any icon. In this case, I was using an iceberg image. And it might be really great to just say, hey, I know we're at this delivery stage. I know we're getting ready to execute on all these wonderful ideas. What have we done so far? What's been working? And put that above the waterline. And then you might say below the waterline, but not actually in the iceberg yet, but in the water, say what's hanging out there? What still needs to be done? But below the waterline on the iceberg, say what empowers us in order to get these things done? What has helped us be successful? It might be skill sets, or it might have been something we accomplished that we're like, what's the root of all of these accomplishments? And when you can build on that, and you could even have it as a working file. It could be one image that you just keep adding to. And what that does is it excites them, because they're not like, oh my gosh, there's so many things we still haven't done yet. It's like, hold on a minute, let's celebrate what we have done. And if you're stuck somewhere, like if there's something that still needs to be done, what do we need in order to get it done? Is it similar to something we've already done? How are we successful? Can we repeat that? Or is it like, oh my gosh, we're going to, no kidding, need to reevaluate this and either hire someone or, figure out a new way to do this, right? Revisit it. And yeah. So you're saying, how do we get the email of each participant? I don't know. I mean, I don't think we need to email each other, but I would say communicate through the Padlet. So that's a great way to talk to each other. And then if you want to keep in contact with other participants, I would say just ask them either privately in Zoom while you're here, or ask them in the Padlet, or you can offer that up on the Padlet for yourself in your own intro, maybe your own email, and let people know that if you want to connect with them, say, here's my email. How's that sound? Yeah. Because I don't share other people's emails, but you're welcome to share with each other through the Padlet. And I'm hoping that Padlet becomes this really wonderful place where we can document some of the visuals we've done, because you can see that they can be totally customizable. So I'm aware that we're at the top of the hour. I'll stick around for another 5 minutes if anybody has questions. Did that answer your question, Deborah? Cool. Great. Glad to see it. Great stuff in the chat. I'll make sure that everybody gets that. And how do you get the Padlet? So that's Mary, if you don't mind, please put the link to the Padlet in there. And when you may have already gone in there when we were there before. All right. Matt, you say for another great session. Have you been in one of my other sessions?
The freebie
Yeah. Oh, good.
for the
Good.
intro. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of information, I know. So great. Mary just put the link in the chat for the Padlet. And again, I'd love for you to go in, introduce yourself. If you want to share your email, you're welcome to. But yeah, we're going to start putting our own visuals below. And I hope to see you at the open hours. And until then, we'll see you. Remember, we'll see you next week, same time, but in North America, our time zones are changing. So you may want to just double check if you're not in the same, if you're not changing with daylight savings time or into daylight standard time, then be sure to check that out. All right. We'll see you
Thanks,
either on
Heather.
Monday or next Wednesday,
Great
everyone.
session. Bye.
Thank you.